Okay. Hey everyone, folks are rolling in and I'm gonna get started because I'm just the intro guy and not the meat of the program here. But hi everyone, my name is Adam Desjardins. I'm the programs manager at Culture Source. We are a regional art service organization based in Southeast Michigan. We do our work via programs to convene people around ideas, around how things are done, and also lots of other sort of topics and that pertain to the arts and cultural sector here in Southeast Michigan. And through re-granting programs, we have some really great programs open right now on our website at culturesource.org. And then we also do it through research too. Basically studying, what is affecting the arts and cultural sector as a whole. Today I'm here as a part of our online art symposium called Watch This Space, which is a part of our work with Mural Arts Philadelphia. And we're doing a really quick program called How Do I Do That? It's basically very much quick, tactical thinking on how public arts projects are done. I'm really excited because we have some really interesting folks here today, Ariana Hellerman and Jim Boyle, and also Mark Folk from down in Toledo, who will be moderating today's conversation. Like I said, this is part of our symposium, so check that out on our website at culturesource.org. Our other programs pertaining to the symposium are another How Do I Do That session, two of them really, one tomorrow and then one on Thursday. Don't miss those. Those are each 30 minutes long as well. And then Friday, we have wrapping it up with a panel by Jane Golden, who is the founder of Mural Arts Philadelphia. She's super rad, and I really recommend everybody to tune into that because she is just a force to be reckoned with. Next week, we'll also be sending out some really exciting stuff, including recording of all of these programs, so you don't have to record it right now on your phone if that's what you're up to. This is also all a part of Detroit's Month of Design, which is Detroit is the only UNESCO designated city of design in the United States, and we're really proud of that. And so this is a part of the really fabulous Detroit Month of Design. They have some really great programming as well. And you should check that out on their website at designcore.org. Again, thanks to our symposium partners, the Live 6 Alliance and Mural Arts Philadelphia, who we work with as a part of the Mural Arts Institute. And then thank you to our wonderful partners who support our work. There's lots of them, and we're really thankful for all their support and thinking and partnership as we do our work to serve the arts and cultural sector. Anyway, enough from me. I'm going to pass it over to Mark Folk from the Arts Commission down in Toledo, and he's going to moderate our conversation. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here today for How Did I Do That? I am Mark Folk, the President and CEO of the Arts Commission of Greater Toledo. We operate the longest standing municipal art program in the state of Ohio going back to 1977, and I'm delighted to be here with Jim and Ariana today to talk about the evolution of art in public places into performance and then out of our cities into our rural landscape. We have a really fast-paced 30-minute conversation focusing on the how. We'll hear first from Ariana Hellerman, who's with the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership. And now I'll turn it over to Ariana.
Great, thank you, Mark. I'm gonna share my screen. Also, just so you all know, I mainly focus on performing arts. So this will be more about the activation of public space that I have worked on. So I'm trying to get that up, and here we go. Great. So in short, I'm Ariana Hellerman. I work both as an independent producer though I've worked on projects around the country and globe. As an independent producer, my longest running project has been the Accordions Around the World series, and Brian for me, it is.
Hey Ariana, your video's choppy a little bit, so you might want to try turning off your video and then maybe your audio will work best.
Oh. All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. So I can share separate festival and often that chuckles on its quirkiness. But for me, it is my form of building equity around representation for immigrant cultures in my city. We provide a major platform in the heart of New York City, right near Times Square, for those communities to share their culture. And we are able to hire upwards of 100 artists annually in the process. In my other hat, I work full-time with DBP, which is not a cultural organization, but a business improvement district, which is also known as a BID. BID's jobs are to attract companies, residents, shoppers, etc. to the neighborhood, which in short means we're in service of the community and our goal is to enhance the quality of life within the district. We are charged with activating multiple plazas and parks with programming. Since these are all in public space, our events are entirely free and the community, which results in deep diversity. We ask questions like, who is here? Who do we want to partner with? And who do we want to invite to the space? What are their interests? One week we may have hip hop artist Big Daddy Kane. The next we're presenting Grammy Award put on an event and what are good things to engage in putting on performing arts events in public space. Number one, coming up with a good idea. If the idea addresses a deep need or is quirky, you have no issue getting interest and or attention. Accordions was on the front page of the New York Times culture section. In downtown Brooklyn, we recently launched a rehearsal residency initiative in response to the COVID-19 crisis and its devastating effect on the New York City cultural landscape. When large-scale programming is not possible and artists and arts organizations may not be able to use indoor studio spaces safely, we've made one of our plazas available as free rehearsal space for artists. There has been great interest from the arts community and has even helped to spark a city council bill around activating New York City's public spaces with arts and culture. Another example, when a brand new business, Neighborhood Cut and Shave, came to downtown Brooklyn, to strum up attention for them, we partnered to create Cut, a movie series about hair, in which free trims were given. We received a New York Times mention for quirkiest movie series of the summer. Number two, pitch the idea. Bids are a good outlet and often accept proposals. Their goal is unique activation of space to bring attention to the neighborhood, and they have a budget to do so. As managers of public space, they also know permitting processes and help make connections for you. If bids aren't an option, do your research on who owns the space. Is it city? Is it privately owned? Building these relationships are important and they know their sites best. They will help to guide you in the process. Three, think about space, design, and experience. Each of our downtown Brooklyn plazas have different identities. I've learned the personality and history of each. For example, Albee Square, which is on the historic Fulton Mall, is where hip hop fashion developed. And as a result, we have a lot of our hip hop performances there. We also have the plaza at 300 Ashland, which was built in the heart of the Brooklyn Cultural District, which includes BAM and other world-class organizations, Mark Morris Dance, and we do more of our traditional cultural programming there. Also think about how the space is best utilized to accommodate people and make the event unique. Flip up formatting and orientations. An example here is when we had a gospel performance, usually what we use as seats became the risers. We've also used different decorations to create a different environment. So with all of this, it's about thinking about the experience and not just the art that's presented. How do we make the space look unique? How do we provide the best customer service? I want my team to bend over backwards for this community, be culturally sensitive, and be attentive to their needs. We must always be kind and inviting, even in a crazy place like New York City. I'm going to just touch quickly on a few things that I've learned, and I'll leave it at that. So number one, importance of savviness around permitting and knowing your community. I talk daily with the New York Police Department, the Street Activity Permitting Office, building managers. Bureaucracy is never fun, but if you have the relationships with the key players, they will make your lives so much easier. Number two, be vivid and bright. What works well? Marching bands, brass bands, larger scale dance and circus for the visual impact, things with color and movement. In public space, you're often competing with traffic, people, crazy situations, and you need to be able to catch people's eyes and ears. We've begun to launch many of our events with marching and brass bands to attract attention. And one of my personal favorite additions this past year at our Downtown Brooklyn Arts Festival was the addition of sky dancers, which are historically in auto dealerships or car washes. Those are those floppy puppets that like wave in the air, and they were a huge hit. Three, programming is marketing and marketing is programming. I want to emphasize the importance of having series and repeat performances. Oftentimes when we're on site and people see what's happening in our plazas, they're like, what's happening here? How can I see the next one? So when you have a series, there's always the opportunity to have a next one. And if a performance repeats, you have the opportunity to tell people, come back later. So that I would emphasize that. Four, timelines and communications are different when working outside the cultural sector. I think oftentimes, since I don't work for a cultural organization, sometimes there's not as much understanding of what we do in the planning time we need to pull it off. And since we are in the business of fun, quote unquote, many do not realize the incredible amount of work it takes to create this seamless magic. City government may want an event in less than a week. It can be frustrating, but I've learned to be agile and always have some easy to implement ideas up my sleeve. And lastly, this isn't so much what I've learned, but just more something I feel like I would like to share is that in public space, we have a huge opportunity right now. Now is the time for us to be supporting underrepresented communities who may not historically be represented in cultural programming in this country. Because everything is free and open to the public, there's no building to walk into and there's no ticket price to pay. And with these zero barriers to entry, this makes all of our cultural programming accessible to anyone regardless of income or a fear that a building that looks imposing may not be for them. And for the performers, it gives a sense of pride to be performing their culture in public for all to see and allows them to connect with their own culture or perhaps a profession they left behind in their home country. A lot of our accordionists no longer are professional musicians. They do it as a hobby because they've had to find other sources of income in this country. So in this time of—
For sake of time, we're going to move it over to Jim now, and we can get into some of those extra lessons in the Q&A as time permits. Thank you so much for a great presentation and pushing through the challenges with technology and connectivity at this time. Great presentation. It's now my pleasure to introduce Jim Boyle from 53 North in the Ralph C. Wilson Foundation. Jim is working with contemporary artists in rural Port Austin to repurpose barns in the rural landscape as a form of public art. It's my pleasure to now turn it over to Jim Boyle. You're on mute still, Jim. Jim, you're still on mute.
Sorry about that. Boy, you'd think by now I'd be Zoom ready. Thanks, Ariana. Thanks, Mark. Ariana, your presentation makes me want to travel to Brooklyn. I've been locked in my bedroom for 6 months. So my story is a little scrappier. I wish I could say there was more thought put into it than there was, but you know, here goes. Basically, I grew up in Port Austin, Michigan, which you see on the map here, about 2 hours north of Detroit. I've lived in Detroit for the past 25 years, and my parents are still up there. So on my return visits, I would often see these amazing turn of the century barns that I became obsessed with, many of which were starting to fall down. And I started to wonder if Detroit artists who were responding through their art to declining industrial buildings and materials in the city might want to do similar projects in a rural context. So started inviting some of those folks up to create large-scale installations, a little siren in the background, using barns as their medium. I call the project 53 North because M53 basically runs from my doorstep in Detroit to the stoplight in Port Austin. Okay. So I think the first order of business in a project like this is always find the right people to work with, and in this case, it was always the artist first. It had to be somebody that was pretty comfortable to get into something where we weren't sure how it was going to end. We didn't always have money, and when we started, we did not have the locations selected. So the first project was with Steve and Dorota Coy. This is them in a field in Port Austin. While they did their mural project on a barn, they also did tons of photography and made a short film. These guys go by the name the Hygienic Dress League. It's a husband-wife conceptual art project. And they were super excited to kind of go up and explore this project with me as kind of a first entry point. So once I convinced them, it was really figuring out how to find the barn and do site selection. Probably the most fun part of the process. We would, the artist in every one of these instances would come up and hang out in Port Austin, drive around all day and try to find barns and drink wine at night. This is Dorota in front of one of the barns that we didn't select. And this is us in front of the barn that we ended up kind of working with. I think it's important to note that you can't always just hand in an instance like this where you're working in such scale, you can't hand the artist a location, expect them to be excited. Involving them in the process was really critical. Once that was done, it was really about involving and engaging the community. I still have many relationships up there. It always starts with the barn owners themselves. When we did not have a project in the ground to point to, this was a really hard thing for people to get their minds around. And we really lucked out with Hank and Jeanette Zeal. These are the folks that own the first barn, and that I went to high school with their daughter. So, but it does take somebody with imagination to provide the barn, and most of them, everybody basically did it for free. We also, in terms of community engagement, really needed to leverage in-kind donations. So this photo is artist Scott Hocking. He is working on a donated telehandler. And if you see, these are 4 telephone poles that are holding up basically his sculpture that were provided to us at cost or lower. So getting some of the community kind of excited about the project and getting in-kind donations was a really critical part of what we did. And then when we went along, we tried to engage the school districts up there. This is Bad Axe Middle School, to kind of engage with the artists. And every time we had kind of a public opening for every piece. We had art talks and dinners, etc. So we always use the artists in the context when you're dealing with the local community in Port Austin, and frankly, the folks in Detroit that help to support us financially. We really leveraged, the Hygienic Dress League and Scott Hocking and Katie Newell, who did this piece here that you're looking at, to help us, frankly, frame this and get people excited and raise money and get donations. And then we connected with the economic development folks up in Huron County and really kind of engaged them around the economic impacts of having these major installations in their communities and what they would mean. So from there, I mean, it's pretty much rinse and repeat for every project. We've gotten 3 projects done so far. We'd love to do more. It's really all about time and money. This is the first piece that we did. It's the Hygienic Dress League, kind of an American Gothic theme, as you can see, featuring the leaders of their folk company And then on the same barn, on the other side, they did a logo of their corporation. This is Scott Hawking's completed piece. Scott disassembled a 50-foot barn and turned it into this massive bolt-like sculpture. It kind of is one of the most surprising pieces of art that you could come upon. You just kind of drive up and see it come out of this bean field, and it kind of rises up out of it like Stonehenge, and there's really not a lot of context around it, so it's fun to see people just kind of discover it. Katie Newell did the third piece that we did. She is an artist and architect who teaches at the University of Michigan. You can see this really subtle but kind of mind-bending slice that she put into this barn. If you look at it from any angle on the exterior, it looks like it's about to fall into itself. But you know, on the interior, it's bound together through kind of architectural magic. And it is meant to be illuminated at night through solar panels. So this is kind of a nighttime portion of it. Again, you know, just to kind of reemphasize some of the how-to along the way through this process, we set up a 501c3 nonprofit called the Port Austin Art and Placemaking Fund. We needed a place to capture some of the dollars. We always had trouble finding a place for the artists to stay when they were up there. So the town got really involved, and they they established an artist residency in downtown Port Austin. So it's a free place to stay for the artists to come up. Some of these pieces took months and months. So the artists coming up and back from Detroit, it was difficult to find, you know, a place to stay without breaking the budget. On Katie's piece, which is the one you're looking at here, we became a lot more sophisticated about the legal right to be on the property. And so the community leased this acre of land and all of the pieces, you know, and got insurance coverage for it. We're getting a little more sophisticated at promoting it and signage and things like that. And we always, like I said, we'd love to do more, but you know, we're always looking to kind of raise money.
Jim, thank you.
Yep.
I want to leave a little bit of time for questions, and I want to thank you both again. This is incredibly difficult to do, years of work in a quick 30-minute presentation. Adam has posted the link to both slide decks in the chat for you to look at, and you're both doing amazing work in the lane of connecting people to place and animating culture and community through public art. I would just like to ask, and we have about 6 minutes left, each of you to give 2 minutes to answer the question. If you were starting this work again anew right now, what was one thing you wish you knew? And we'll start with Brian. I'm sorry, Jim. I know is it your brother, Brian?
Yeah.
I keep seeing him when I look at you, forgive me.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I mean, I think I wish I would have known that we were going to make this a series, because I think we would have established a lot more infrastructure that we've kind of had to do fumbling along. When we did the first project, it was really kind of looked at as a one-off, but right in the middle of that project, we started to imagine what impact it would have on the community, and frankly, for artists in Detroit to have a rural place to kind of go up and do their trade in that kind of context. But I would have set up the funding mechanisms early, and just would have started some things with a little more infrastructure.
Wonderful. Ariana?
I think something that's been so amazing about the platform that I work in is that a lot of artists come to us around activation of space, and we have so much space, and my idea was just like, yeah, of course, but obviously management takes time and energy. And so I think realizing, instead of making these blanket promises, just kind of thinking about the management. So that's more of my own personal management wish, but I think that's what came to mind when you asked that question.
Yeah. So where do you see the work going in the future if you were to grow it? We'll start with Jim on that question.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. The initial idea, as we realized this was going to become a series, we had this, fantasy of doing 10 projects in 10 years. That time horizon has been greatly stretched out from just a capacity and dollars standpoint. But, I think it's one of the more interesting outdoor art experiences you can have in the state of Michigan, if not around the country. And we'd love to, I think, raise a little bit more dollars, so we're not living day to day, and be able to forecast out a little further and get, if I could get two or three more of these done, I think it would be amazing.
Great. Ariana, you're working in a very dense urban environment. Can you talk a little bit about how you're adjusting your work in the time of COVID?
Sure. In many ways, COVID has been a blessing for my work. It's like maybe one of the only blessings that has come out of this. The use of public space is the only place that we can be in safely. And with that, there has just been a rethinking of urban planning around use of space. So in New York City, we now have open restaurants where streets are lined with beautiful outdoor seating, and these restaurants have made it really cozy. And as a result of that, there is now a bill going forward called Open Culture. I talked about it briefly earlier, and the idea is, how do we invite cultural organizations and artists to activate public space? So in many ways, my vision, which has always been around making arts accessible via public space, there is a huge opportunity right now because public space is the only place that people can be in safely. So I'm just excited to see a proliferation. We still have rules in New York around gathering numbers, so we can't have public gatherings of more than 50 people. So we have not begun performances yet, but hopefully once we have a vaccine, people will see that this works, and we'll just see more and more of activation of public space rather than people having to go inside a theater in order to experience arts and culture.
Wonderful. Thank you. Lastly, boy, I don't know how to close this out. One challenge that you've overcome, I guess really briefly, in your work, that was a linchpin moment that allowed you to accelerate moving forward. And we'll start with Jim.
I would say, I don't know if it was a challenge, but I think a linchpin moment is when people outside of the community started to give recognition to the work, which allowed us, I think, to get some energy in the fundraising space, and artists are now interested. So this has been featured in Sculpture Magazine. It's been in the Detroit News and the Detroit Free Press. PBS World News is doing a national piece on it. So I think that's been hugely, you get exhausted when you're kind of doing this and there's no capacity to do it, and there's no staff. And I think it's energizing for both myself, and I think the community is starting to see the economic impact as people start to look at Huron County as an arts destination.
Great. Ariana?
Yeah, I would say something similar. I think sometimes we don't see the beauty and value with what we have. And so when you get external validation, it sometimes just helps to create an impetus, especially with accordions. What's been amazing is, and I mentioned this in my presentation, just how programming is marketing and marketing is programming. We just we're out there every summer, and we're out there weekly. And also we got that front page of the culture section review. And so more and more people would come. And for me personally, the value in that was also people would come up to me and start sharing stories about their connections to the instrument. So it became bigger, but it also became more deeply personal, where I could really hear from others of why they were present and why they wanted to participate. So the external validation helps on many levels. And for me personally, just being able to interact with the public and hear the value for them is very deep.
Wonderful. Well, I look forward to coming to both of those communities and checking out your work as soon as it's safe to do so again. And I'll turn it back over to Adam.
Perfect. And it's 11:30 on the dot. So we have made it work within just 30 minutes. So thanks so much again to our participating presenters today, Mark from down in Toledo, Jim from down the street in Detroit, and Ariana from all the way in Brooklyn. Thanks everybody for joining us, and join us for the rest of our symposium, which I've dropped the link in below, and learn more about their work. It's really cool. If you have the chance to go to Port Austin, I highly recommend. And if you have the chance to go to Brooklyn sometime, definitely reach out to Ariana, and of course, Mark down in Toledo too. So thanks again to our presenters, and check out the rest of our programming. And until then, go and enjoy some outdoor public space, and hopefully, make it creative in some way that you can. See you again tomorrow, same time, same place, for another How Do I Do That? Thanks again, Ariana, Jim, and Mark.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.